Bye-bye. Still some tickets available at the Theatre Royal.
Our candidates debate is well underway. Just before the break, we were talking about social welfare versus work, and the question and the answer seemed to focus quite a lot on how a lot of self-employed, unemployed people, if you know what I mean, have no entitlement whatsoever to any social welfare benefits, despite what they have contributed to the tax take over the years. And we're going to take the contributions on this now from Jodie Power, from Independent from Green first of all, and then Justin Connery, Independent. Jodie, please.
I think the measure of any society and the stability in our society, we're going through a really traumatic time right now. It's really important that all people in society are treated fairly. If not, we have injustice. Where we have injustice, we have unquiet. Where we have unquiet, we can't get jobs. We can't induce tourists into our country here. So it's really important that people like the self-employed do get their just deserve like everybody else in our society, number one. Number two, with regards to the minimum wage, all right, there is no point in someone, or what inducement is there for anybody to come off welfare if they go to work and get less wages? So the only thing we can do right now to reverse that is to reverse the reduction in the minimum wage. And I would definitely like to see that happen.
Okay, thank you, Jodie. Justin?
Okay, there's 2 points. So I am self-employed, so I know quite a lot about this subject. So the first thing is, I mean, I would question all the parties' motivation, so Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil and Labour, to the smart economy. As a self-employed person, I get less tax credits than everybody else, and I don't get the benefits when I become unemployed. So if I was to be sensible about it, I would never become self-employed, and yet that they claim is what they're trying to encourage. So I think that's a misnomer or a problem within the system. Another interesting thing when you're talking about the benefits culture that we have in this country is 50% of all properties are actually rented by the government. Okay, and for a fixed price. So actually what it does is it creates a problem for all of society because it pushes up the cost of rent for everybody, not just the people in those properties. And that's the way the system is structured at the moment. And it means then that people who are trying to go to work have to pay more for their rental properties. So the whole system needs to be simplified and reformed.
Okay, thank you for that, Justin. Let's move on to another question, at this time from April Duff. April from Doyle and Ogue, the National Youth Parliament. April.
Hi, my name is April Duff. I'm a member of Doyle and Ogue, which is the annual National Youth Parliament. And as a member of this group, I've been doing work in the areas of mental health, especially for young people. And at the moment, I'm currently 17 years of age. And I believe that at the moment, if I were to develop a serious mental health issue, I would have nowhere to go because of the gap that exists in mental health services between the ages of 16 and 18. I'm no longer classified as a child under the health system, and yet I don't qualify to be treated as an adult under the mental health system. And I think this is really a really worrying and a dangerous situation because young people are at their most vulnerable at this time.
And to whom would you like to put the question, April?
To any of the candidates who have thoughts on how this could be addressed.
Ciara Conway would like to take it first, and then we'll go to Tom Higgins. Ciara first, please.
First of all, I'd like to say that I'm delighted to see Doyle and Ogue represented here tonight, a former, I suppose, deputy of the organisation back in the day, and delighted to see a young woman as well, because you know it's worth noting that I am the only woman in this election of the 15. And April raises a very, very serious point. My own background is in social work, and I work with some of the most vulnerable young people, and it's a huge gap that has been talked about for a long number of years, and nothing has changed. And April is quite right in what she says, that there is no services for children between the ages of 16 and 18. They're no longer a child nor an adult. And what you have is you have young people been shoved into adult systems where their needs are not being met. And how this can be addressed very simply, and the Labour Party are absolutely committed to this, is that we need a referendum on children's rights. This is something that was promised to us by the last government, and they failed to deliver on it. Not only in relation to mental health, in relation to young people, but in relation to the needs of children all across on all sectors of society. But unfortunately, Ireland has one of the highest rates of youth suicide in Europe, and unless we address this fatal gap in services, and it's worth noting as well that mental health services, even those for adult mental health services, are one of the most underfunded within the health service, and working with the most vulnerable and needy people. And it's a measure of any society how we treat and care for our most vulnerable. And it's an indictment and a shameful statistic on successive Fianna Fáil governments.
Okay, can we take that over to Tom Higgins? Tom, of course, a GP in his day job on this question. mental health for young people?
If you got an episode of, say, depression, psychosis, or you were suicidal, and you were 16, 17, that age group, there's actually no beds in the South Eastern Health Board for you to be admitted to if you need to be. And lots of mental conditions, you need to be admitted. It used to be called asylum, as a bad name, but asylum is a place where you need to go away from the stresses and strains of modern living, and you need to be maybe put to bed and rested and taken away from all your stresses. Now, there's 8 adolescent beds in the Cork and Kerry area, and when I was on the South Eastern Health Board area, we landed 6 beds for the Waterford area, Wexford, Kilkenny, Carlow and South Riding. But unfortunately, the Health Board broke up, and when it came back as HSE, the 6 beds were gone. There's certainly a hiatus in this area. Like, there are child and adolescent psychiatrists, psychologists, all the various counselling services, but there is no place for a serious psychiatric illness in the South Eastern Health Board. You're put in to adult wards, which are totally unsuitable for young adolescent girls and boys. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to come in on it, or move on to another question? I'll move on to another question. Okay, quick one before the break. Gentleman here who doesn't want to speak himself, which is fine. If elected, would you accept the salaries and benefits of a current TD, or would you voluntarily give some of it back to the Exchequer? Justin, first of all, on that, please. Independent, Justin Connery.
Okay, so I think it's important to say that the ethics of any organisation are defined from the top down. And if the people at the top of the system are abusing that system, it then gives the right to everybody below them to continue abusing that system. So claiming expenses of €100,000 a year is abusing the system. Getting pension benefits of €3 million is abusing the system. And if I get elected, that is one of the very first things that I will be looking to change.
Okay, so you would take a voluntary reduction in that?
Sorry, Ian, just to make the point clear, right, because some other candidates will try and make political capital and say, well, I'll hand my pension back and I won't take it. I'm not going to hand back my personal pension. I'm going to change the system so that nobody gets it. It's important that we don't.
Okay, very good. Could I ask one of the 2 sitting TDs to take up that question? Would you hand back voluntarily some of your salary back to the Exchequer?
I'll take it first, if you like. I'm somebody who, if I decided to retire from politics today and decided not to run in this current election, I would have a certain level of pension. I've decided that I'm going to put myself forward for election. I have a long record of public service, but as a result of that, it will mean, with the cuts there have been in pay for TDs, etc., that my pension will actually end up smaller in a few years' time than it would be if I left now. So I'm prepared to do that. I think a lot of the bad publicity, if you like, that we have gotten around pay and so on, has been the level of ministerial pay more so than the level of TD's pay, because our pay would be very much comparable with the pay of of members of parliament in other European countries. Probably would be quite behind some of them. So I think what got everything a bad name in this country were the inflated levels of pay that were given to ministers, and that is something that is changing. But unfortunately, when somebody goes into a job under certain conditions, you cannot take it away from him. But these things are changing from the next election.
John, do you see yourself in that?
Okay, what over the last month, what I've been hearing from people, frankly, isn't TD salaries. It's the inflated ministerial salaries. But particularly people are extremely bitter, and I'll use the word bitter, about ministerial pensions and the massive ministerial pensions. At a time when, frankly, the country's bankrupt, they can't be justified. And we haven't been in government 10 years, Justin. Let me finish the question.
You've taken 100,000 unvouched expenses.
Basically, Fine Gael, 2 weeks ago, my expenses are vouched, Tom. 2 weeks ago, Fine Gael brought out a policy where we would change the entire system so that ministers would not be able to retire until they're 65 with their pensions. To change the system absolutely entirely.
Okay, let's take a break here and we'll come back with more after this.